Hello, good morning. My name is Sandra Esenamapan and welcome to Business. Let's start with yesterday's budget. The government said it will establish 400 telephony sites to provide voice signals to 2,000 unserved communities in 2019, according to the Finance Minister, Ken Oforiatta. The aim is to help bridge the digital divide and ensure nationwide coverage by 2020.
Mr. Speaker, in connecting Ghana through digitization and communication, government established 400 telephony sites to provide voice signals to 2,000 unserved communities to bridge the digital divide and ensure nationwide coverage by 2020. In 2019, government will deploy an additional 600 telephony sites to provide voice signals to 1,800 communities where coverage is limited or non-existent due to the inability of existing licensed operators to expand their network. The construction of the ICT Technology Park to provide multi-tenant infrastructure at Dawa through a PPP arrangement is ongoing and is expected to be completed in 2019. Mr. Speaker, we'll put more resources behind fintech in the ensuing year.
We still stay on the budget, but this time to a reaction from the Asia, and the Association of Ghana Industries has reacted to the 2019 budget, saying it somewhat met the expectation of Ghanaian industry. Even though government pledged more funding to improve industrialization, the Asia insists much was not heard on the one district, one factory policy and its financing. CEO of the association said Chuma Buakwa has been speaking to my colleague Charles Ayete.
Interest rate, unfortunately, is still up there, but even if you compare year on year, you saw some reduction in interest rates. Of course, not up to the level that we expect, but there was some stability. Until recently, also, there was, reasonable stability in the exchange rate until the last 2 months or so when we started seeing fast depreciation of the cedi. But I think for the past few weeks also, it stabilized again. So I think the minister will be right to say that there has been general stability in the macroeconomic environment. I think there's some improvement.
Do you know, per what the finance minister just stated, that about 75 industries are expected to be completed somewhere by next year? Is AGI confident, because you have always been raising concerns about a clear guideline as to how these factories are going to be funded and completed?
Well, I think the expectation was even higher, that at the initial stages we will have so many of them established. But AGI's position has always been that, knowing that we are the operators and we know how industries are set up, that it's not just a political gimmick. Your political dogma can never replace economic reality. So when it comes to establishment of industry, you can't just wish it. It has to go through some processes. So the numbers for me was not very critical, but the effort, and the strategies that is being put in place to ensure that we have a certain number is more important. So the government is saying about 70 industries are supposed to be set up. We will need to follow up to see the stage where they are, to be very sure that indeed by the end of the year, by the end of next year, we have those numbers. But that should be possible. Nothing's because that should be possible, because it's taken us about a year and a half to come this far, and it's a major focus of government. So if government says we could have 70 industries set up, why should we doubt it? What is even more important is that we need to monitor and make sure that indeed it happens, because it can create jobs. So for me, that is also critical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, whenever we're talking about industries,
away from the budget, the Institute of Directors is pushing for a legislature for training and certification of heads of organizations to ensure best practices. According to the president of the Institute, Roxanne Dugbega, he said the move will help streamline activities of directors on various boards.
The Institute of Directors Ghana is a professional institution established in 1999 to promote good corporate governance practices in the country through training, consultancy services, research and advocacy. According to the Institute, the recent challenges in the banking sector has brought to the fore the essence of sound corporate governance and leadership in organizational setups. President of the Institute, Roxanne Dugbega, underscored the need for a legislation to certify all board directors.
And we have the situation in Ghana where some people, or most people that serve on public boards, do not have the knowledge, the appropriate knowledge they don't have the certification. And so in terms of quality, that is lacking. And so things are taken for granted. The airline will actually come in to regulate that space to ensure that for you to be appointed into a board membership, you have the right training, you are certified, and you continuously remain in good standing to be able to play in that space of board membership in Ghana.
He noted the institute will offer necessary support to individuals and institutions to help build up the much-needed capacity for sound corporate governance across the country.
So we want to cure at least the knowledge gap by way of knowing what the expectations are and all of that one, making it a competency-based business. So we would want you to know what is required of you as a board. You must know your roles and responsibilities. You must know the legislative environment, the laws. You must know the expectation of stakeholders. You must know the legal expectations of your performance at the corporate and individual level.
This year's Directors' Week celebration is under the theme, Stimulating and Sustaining the Culture of Good Corporate Governance.
Deputy Finance Minister Kweku Kwarteng has been justifying government's decision to issue a $50 billion bond, stating it is the desire to stop the slow approach towards solving the country's challenges with infrastructure. He spoke earlier on the Super Morning Show.
People doing business with ADB and NIB would never be disadvantaged by the decision that government would make. That they can be sure. Because at the very worst, depending on how you look at it, if these banks are taken over by the new bank, the new bank would inherit all the liabilities and assets of the old banks. Nobody should worry at all about what is going to happen. It's purely a government strategy rather than impacting the workings of these banks in any way. And I take this opportunity, is very important to government. I take this opportunity to assure the listening public on behalf of government that we have no plans to do anything to these two banks that would impact adversely depositors or people doing business with these banks. And if you have deposits there, keep them there. If you have money, take them there. They are safe, and government would always protect your interest. The new bank, yes, the decision has been made. We will have to continue to look at the figures we are seeing from these two banks and to make a decision whether they would still stand alone or government will have to absorb them.
Now, Mr. Kwarteng also said customers of the Agricultural Development Bank and the National Investment Bank will not be affected in any way by the decision to merge the two financial institutions or set up a completely new development bank. He assured customers of their deposits that their deposits are actually safe, stating any decision will be in the best interest of the state. In the presentation of the 2019 budget, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta stated government has accepted advice and has set up a project term to operationalize some recommendations in order to launch a national development bank. So that's what we have. But before we go, let's take a look at some of the highlights of yesterday's budget presentation in Parliament.
Money to provide the infrastructure with which businesses can operate. And that is what informed the century bonds on the one part. So in summary, it is the desire.
Unfortunately, we are unable to bring you the highlights, but we have more business news with Emmanuel Abuajiwafe at 1 on the marketplace. And obviously, we'll be talking about the budgets. Go on myjoyonline.com/business for more business updates. My name is Sandra Esinamathis. Thanks for watching.